Welcome back to Love and Legacy. Welcome. We are so glad that y'all have decided to tune in again, yet another week. We are in season 1 of our Love and Legacy podcast.
Indeed.
We are exploring different topics that God has laid on our heart, and we're going to do something a little bit different today. Typically, we will talk about ways to build practical skills for purposeful marriage, and we'll talk about different topics. And then sometimes, as you've seen, we'll ask for couples to come and learn about their love and legacy story and how they have been building love and legacy and getting unstuck in challenging areas, and that has been great as well. In those conversations, we have talked about a topic that has come up a couple of times, and that was around grief. And as we started to talk to some of these couples, we realized we don't really talk about this enough.
No, not popular.
We don't really like create that safe space or feel like it's okay, or maybe we'll be judged, or maybe other people can't really receive what we're going through, or maybe they don't understand. Some people might feel like, well, they're just gonna tell me to pray about it or get over it or give me a scripture. And all those things are okay. And sometimes we just need a space to just be, to be present with each other and grieve and explore what that looks like. So today we're gonna dive a little bit deeper into the topic of grief. And as we were talking to these couples, we asked them to come back. So you have seen some of these couples in separate episodes, but we've asked them to come back. So we are going to officially welcome them in this safe room. And first, we're going to start with the Jenkins. And so we're going to ask the Jenkins, just tell us a little bit about who you are and where you're from and how long you've been married.
Go ahead. You got it this time.
Okay, we are Hannah and Anthony.
Yeah.
We have been married for 15 years, together for 17.
Yes.
And we are originally from
Fort Lauderdale.
Yes.
Florida, but we reside here in Orlando.
Yes, and quick, how we got together. We've technically been together since preschool, but did not officially meet each other until college.
Yeah, she followed me.
That's not
Elementary,
story at all.
middle school. She skipped high school.
Whatever, not the story. But God did put us together. After college, we were at the same church, and basically, long story short, here we are.
Here we are. Yep, so, 2 kids.
2 kids later.
Skylar and AJ.
Yes.
And a dog.
And a dog, yes.
Don't forget about the fur baby. Don't forget
Yes.
about the fur baby. Well, welcome back
Welcome back.
to the Love and Legacy podcast. And if you haven't seen our episode with Pastors Brittany and Eric, we want to officially invite them into this room, and you'll get to know a little bit more about their story later. But I want to go ahead and have you all and introduce yourselves, tell us where you're from, and then also how long you've been together. And if you want to slide in how y'all met, that would be great too.
Let's see. I'm sure you want me to tell the story because I tell the story best.
You are Eric.
I'm Eric, and this is Brittany. Yes. Let's see. We've been married now for 12 years. Our story is a beautiful story of blending 2 beautiful families together, and we met in church as well. Matter of fact, at the same church.
At the same church.
Yeah, so,
I feel like it's a theme for the singers.
Yeah, and so
church.
we came into our marriage with Brittany had a daughter, I had 3 kids, and we came together, and the Lord blessed it, and now we have 2 additional. So we're a happy 6. We now reside in Boston, Massachusetts, where God has blessed and honored us to plant a church. church work, and so we're excited about that. And that's just a little bit.
My grandbaby out.
Oh, we do have a new grandbaby. I know I don't look like it, but I'm a grandpa. I'm a grandpapa. I'm a grandpapa. So yeah, so it's a little bit about us, but we're excited,
to be here.
talk about this specific subject. It's important.
We're going to talk about their love and their legacy story later, but at least tell us what's the name of your church. So
the name of the church is Edify Church. It's in Boston, Massachusetts, really Medford, Massachusetts, but we are covering the entire Boston, Massachusetts area. And so we planted about 4 years ago, get me right, honey. And God has just been blessing us, blessing us. So.
Well, welcome to the Love and Legacy room. We're so excited that you all are with us. Quickly, for those of you who did not see our first episode, we talked about our love story, but we are George and Jackie.
Yes.
I'm Jackie, that's George.
I'm George. Y'all know.
We are the Lewis Jeans, the host of the Love and Legacy podcast, and we have been married for 15 years.
20 years together.
20 years together.
High school sweetheart.
The Jenkins got us beat. They preschool sweethearts. We high school sweethearts.
We high school
We
sweethearts.
high school sweethearts. So you can kind of see we have a little range of years of marriage and experience together, different family dynamics here. But we want to talk about specifically grief in marriage. And we're going to actually dive a little bit deeper into how do you support your spouse, your partner, when they're going through grief? And what does that look like? So I want to start by just kind of understanding each of we're going to all tell our stories here, but I want to understand your experience with grief. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about kind of that support aspect. And I want to say this though, before we start. Grief is such a broad concept, right? Grief, what we're talking about today, many of us, you'll find that we lost family members. But it's not only about losing family members. You may have lost or experienced, a spouse who has lost their job. You could have lost, a pet or something else that really means a lot to you. You could have lost your expectations of a situation where you're like, I wanted it to turn out like this, but it didn't. And you could be grieving what your expectations were. And so we're going to talk about this in a broad way, but I know we're going to talk about our stories and our family loss. But as you listen, as you think about the things that you're hearing, think about how that might apply to you or people that you know and how you might support them even more. So with that caveat, I want to kind of ask each of you, and I want to start with pastors Brittany and Eric, because I believe that you all may be the latest who have had experience lost. And then I'm going to kind of travel us through to those who I think kind of have been on this journey a little bit longer. So tell us about your experience with grief, and for the person that had the loss in their family, even though we're all family, for the person that had the loss in their family, also talk about what were maybe some spoken or unspoken expectations that you had of your spouse.
So for me, I actually have experienced two. I lost my mom, and I lost my job. So it was two in 2020. I lost my mom in February of 2023, and which had been a long fought battle for her. She had been sick for years, and I think just kind of when the final happened, and I'm like, okay, I don't have her anymore. Like, who is Brittany without her? So I went through that whole dynamic, and then losing my job in May. So that was a lot, but one thing I realized is I needed that time to not have a job to where I needed to go and try to be my best self for other people when I'm just experiencing all of this loss and this grief and this sadness, anger, because grief is so many different stages, and it can happen at any time. I can literally be just sitting down and think of something, and then I start crying because of, and so it happens. The grief stage just happens in so many different. So it was a lot because me and my mother were extremely close, and I think for me, having conversations with her multiple times a day, and then now I can't pick up the phone and call her. Like, what does that look like? Like, what am I going to do at 8:00 in the morning when I'm calling her when she's getting ready to go to dialysis? What am I going to do at 12 o'clock when I know she's up when she's not at dialysis? Like, just like, how do you navigate through that? And I had to find, my new normal, which is almost like, what does a new normal look like? You know what I'm saying? So I think with me, Eric allowed me to have that space to just come and talk to him no matter what. Like, he could be in the middle of something and he could look on my face, what's wrong? And it's like, I just can break down. And and it's something that builds over time because you have to feel safe with your partner to be able to fully release and to fully be yourself and give that person everything. So I'm thankful that he just was that safe space for me.
And, for us, this is very fresh. Less than a year. We haven't even come to the anniversary yet. And so it is still very new for us. And I think a blessing in disguise was the loss of the job. The job was it was a job that she felt like was a dream job as well. So it wasn't, I have a job, I'm working. It was something that she had truly been looking forward to doing for some time. But the blessing in it was she did need that time. She did need to be able to step away from the responsibilities of not just being a wife, not just being a mother, but also being a pastor, so many different things. And I think that space had to be given or taken from somewhere. And I believe the Lord just chose for it to be that job. And I think one of the things that has really shown up for us is that it has brought us closer together. And that doesn't always happen. And so I can be grateful for that because even in a season of loss, it has fused us closer together than we've ever been. And I know she needed that. And so there's no manual for what the spouse does during this situation, right?
Part.
And I think I had to learn, I just had to learn on the fly.
Yeah.
But I believe it's a test of your love for one another because it's no longer about the two of you. It's really how do I put the energy and the focus on whatever she needs right now.
Yeah.
Because if I can be honest, right?
Please.
During that season and during that time, and again, this is still very fresh for us, I found myself in moments where I was saying, but what about me?
Yes.
And what do I need in this season while I'm carrying the load and while I'm taking care of everything? Don't worry about the church. I'll take care of the church stuff. Don't worry about the kids. I'll take care of the kids stuff. Don't worry about the house. I'll take care of the house stuff. But can you at least take care of me? Like, what does that look like? And I think we've had to learn together. And no manual for this. And every loss is different. And the dynamic of the loss is different. And so one of the things that we had to learn to do was just really be able to make safe space, as she said, to communicate and understand. Understand that this loss that she's experiencing, and I have to throw this in because I'm way off in left field when it comes to loss. My family's been blessed. We haven't had a loss in over 25 years. So it's been a long time. So I haven't had to deal with it. I don't know what it feels like. I've lost friends. I've lost, in certain situations. However, no one as close as a parent or a brother or anything like that. And so me learning along the way in this, and it was a quick turnaround. We knew she had been sick. We knew that at any given time the Lord could take her, right? And so we thought we were prepared because it's been like a 3-year process of her not being well and knowing. But as she said, when the final hit, like when the final was final, it took us to a place that we had never been before, and we had to learn on the fly. But again, I think the blessing for us, and I'm thankful that it actually brought us closer together, right? And again, I'll say this, blessing in disguise. When you have so many things going on in your life that you're trying to accomplish and you have such a zeal for those things, sometimes you forget about this, right?
Priority.
We were in that season because we were in year 2.5, 3 of the church plant. And for any of you that have planted or been a part of that, it's a lot.
You're building.
And you're building, and sometimes it takes away from this. I'm just thankful and grateful through that season and the season that we're in, that it has brought us closer together as we learn, because one of the things, those that love us and that have been through this same season of grief, they'll tell you, it doesn't get fixed overnight. It doesn't go away immediately. It is a day by day, month by month, year by year. And we're just in the first months and years of it. And so just thankful that we found ourselves in a place where it's bringing us closer together.
And that's funny how you said that you was in a moment you didn't know exactly what to do. But you at the same time trying to go through the process of what about me? I was in that moment too. The first grief was when her best friend, she was like a sister to me, actually, she died at 28, right? She was 28 years old and she passed away. I didn't know how to express that to her because when we was together, we never learned. Nobody died or anything. So just in that moment, I didn't know how to embrace her in those moments. So I'm sitting back. I'm like, I'm grieving too. She was like my sister. But the second go round, when I think it's your dad, right? Your dad, I had muscle memory understanding because we had that communication to understand, okay, I know what she needed because she expressed that. I needed you in these moments. I need you in that moment. And like, baby, I'm grieving too. I'm sorry I couldn't show up in those moments. But now, having a son and going through the grief, I had to do the same thing. We got a 7-month-old newborn. I lost my job. And then she lost her dad. And then
Hold on. I was 8 months pregnant.
8 months pregnant.
And you lost your job.
8 months pregnant.
Oh, yeah, I was like, what we gonna do, Hoppo? What we gonna do?
Yes.
Because she remember.
Yeah, that was.
She was like,
yeah, she was 8 months pregnant and I got laid off my job. And I just got that job. I was 6 months in.
And it was like a dream job. It was like the most responsibility.
I'm a manager now. It's like literally 10 minutes away. It was like, okay, this is perfect. And the next thing they called me in the office. We gotta let you go. Wait a minute. I got a son coming in like a month. You gonna let me go now? Yeah. So I couldn't do nothing. I said, all right, thank you for the opportunity. I'm just driving home, just remembering, okay, God, I know you in control and you got this. But
yeah.
I said my faith ain't gonna be shaken because I trust you in this moment. But I'm gonna be honest, that time was needed for me to just sit and be still.
Yeah.
And not only that, I was so more hands-on as a parent with my son.
See, just like we have tissue. And we're going to pause when we need to because this is a safe space. So just for our audience, be patient with us as we talk through this.
It just helped me become a better father because now my hands is on, instead of her being the mother, and that's what I was thinking. I'm going to be working and she going to be taking care of everything because that's my traditional mindset and that was my expectation. But God turned it around and said, no, you finna be involved in your son's life from the beginning all the way until it's time for you to go home. But that was the moment he had to show me why I was loving on my son. He was loving on me in those moments. So that was just a shifting moment for me to understand, regardless of what we go through, even though we expect something in that moment, God could take it away in a moment. just to show us something different that he need in that moment for us. So just in those moments, it was a learning experience for me. And I was in the moment too. I'm like, I need love too in these moments. But at the same time, I had to sacrifice my wants to satisfy her needs in that moment. So,
Yeah.
man, I'm the first one to cry. How that happened?
That's all right.
I do want to add something to what you said as far as expressing what you need, because I think for me that was extremely hard to tell him, because I'm the kind of person is, don't worry about it, I got it. Oh, I do it. Don't worry about it, I'm okay, like I can do. And I think like that's something that I know I picked up from my mom. My mom was that kind of person to where, oh, don't worry about it, no, I can do it. I can do it.
Me too.
And just not being able to just fully say, Eric, like I need you to do this. And I still have some challenges in that area. Like I need you to fully take this, because I don't have the capacity to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And I believe just in our culture, it's just we're just taught to be strong. You can do it. Like, don't worry about it. Oh, you'll be okay. And I think that's just, and that's just how we were raised.
That's what was
and
modeled.
what was modeled for us to just do it. And that's not healthy.
Yeah.
Because you have to be in a place to say, listen, I need this for you, because I can't be my best self if I can't give this to you.
And we can't read minds.
We can't.
We cannot.
We cannot read minds.
Cannot.
And when we do, we do a real bad job of it. And I think for us, she has this thing where she hates that I ask questions. I am curious, George. Listen. I ask questions, but I ask questions. I ask questions for understanding, because I don't want to assume, and I don't like taking tests over. I like to get it right the first time. And so for me, and it's so funny because it's in me, and it's in my son Elijah.
Wow.
That boy asked so many questions. But here's the I do it because I want to understand. I think a lot of times in our culture, in our community, sometimes, why are you asking me so many questions? Why this and why? And I think it has built up a place where we can't always be safe to just to do that, right? And so that's what we're learning through. And I think she's getting a little easier with me asking questions, but I think she now knows it's all out of love. I think at one point she felt like it was, I'm trying to be her daddy. And I think we had to get past that and understand that it's just love. But when she began to open up and begin to say, I'm feeling like this. Regardless if I understood it or could relate to it, she told me, so now I understand that I may need to not give my own thoughts or opinions about it, or maybe I just need to hold her, or maybe it is go tie those kids up and put them in the closet for the next 3 hours, right? Whatever the case may be. But now I know, and I think that's important for couples to make sure that that line of communication is hot, honest, open, and transparent, and you give it in the moment. That's another thing that we learned. Don't tell me 2 days later. Tell me right then, so we can really meet it at the where it is in that emotional space that it's in right now.
Or at least have that conversation about what even the needs are around a safe space for communication, because a safe space for me is right now in the moment. And that's not necessarily safe for George. And we had to learn that through trial and error. We got to test and learn. And so, because I like to get to the root of things, I like to ask a lot of questions. I want to know so that I can help, and that we're resolving the right thing and not just the symptom. But then he's going to feel like attacked or nagged, and so we had to find that balance. So even just to go one layer back, just having the conversation about how do we want to have the conversation. When you feel like you're feeling triggered, or you're feeling like you need a space to talk, or you need to just be silent, like how do you want to have those conversations? Do we want to have a 2-minute rule, a 3-minute rule, a day rule, or do we prefer to do it right now? Or is it on a case by case? But just have those conversations about how you want to have the conversation. There's so much I want to unpack, y'all. So much. Well, we're gonna hear about the Jenkins experience with grief, and then we're gonna circle back, because I got like 4 or 5 themes that I'm hearing. Again, I love to get to the root of things, and so I think there's some helpful themes that are coming up that will be good for our audience to hear. because every situation is different, and there could be some things that could help you as you move forward in your journey if you have to deal with grief. So before we get too deep, I do want to ask the Jenkins to tell us about your experience with grief. And as you think about that experience, either spouse, tell us about what your either spoken or unspoken expectations were for each other.
So for us in 2017, I lost my mom. My mom passed away from complications of sickle cell anemia. And in that moment, I was very grateful that God has graced Hannah to be there. It was complicated. Grief was complicated in itself, but I kind of was like, I can do it. I'll be okay, because my mom, obviously, sickle cell anemia, she's lived with that her whole life. And it was, for my experience, it was the way, because I had to watch it for like, towards the end, the last 3 days was a lot. You know what I mean? You just watch somebody go like that, and it was almost like at that time, it was when she was pronounced, it was relief. It was like, good, fine, thank you. You know what I mean? Because, and then you have the different waves of, then it brushes you later.
Yeah.
And then you feel like, I talk to my mom. I talk to my mom every day, 2 or 3 times a day. You know what I mean? But then you were talking about the lessons, and you were saying the lessons that you learned in it. And it was just like, all right, and Hannah was there for me, and I didn't really voice anything, but she was there. She would see me. And that's the thing. She was able to see me in moments. If I'm just at the kitchen, or if I'm sitting by myself or whatever. But I believe my voicing came because then in 2018, my father passed away from cardiac arrest. And then it was so different from mom and dad, because, mom it was a totally different experience. And that's when I realized, like, can't nobody say nothing about grief, because grief is a crazy something.
Yeah.
That thing, it be anywhere. Yeah. You know what I mean? Whether, like you said in the beginning, whether it's a puppy, a spouse, a situation. Yeah. Because losing my father was a totally different feeling, and at that point is when I I felt bad, because I kind of felt like I put something on Hannah that was, I said, you it, like, ain't nobody else. I need, like, you all I got left. You know what I mean? And in that moment, that's the way I felt.
Yeah.
We were just getting ready to purchase a house for my dad, and it was like, all right, who can I talk to about this? Who can I call about this? I'm fairly private. I fairly don't talk about everything, but it was like, all right, Hannah, I began to dump it, but then I have to realize, I give her time to figure it out, or it's not that she had to fill the void that I felt was missing, but it did bring us closer together, because there were things that wasn't happening that began to happen in those moments. And it just, that's our story. Well, my story from it. But I had to tell Hannah, hey, they were your parents too, so you have the opportunity, because I know that she felt sometimes that she didn't have the right to, or she wouldn't cry in front of me, or whatever the case is. And I'm just like, they were special to a lot of people, but you were their daughter, so you had that space and room to do that too. So yeah.
So as the spouse of the one who lost the parents, my perspective is completely different. And so, like, when Mama Jenkins passed, it was really difficult for me because one, I didn't show my grief. I didn't feel like I was allowed to grieve. Because it was, yes, she was my mother-in-law, but she was his mom. And I don't know, somewhere in my mind, I felt like because it was his mother, that if he was having a good day, I needed to have a good day. Like, I didn't have the space or the right to be grieving right now. Like, he's having a good day. If you start crying, that's gonna make him have a bad day. So it was like I never knew when I could show my grief or that I was grieving, because I had to be strong for him. Something else that was difficult for me was that, yes, Anthony is a mama's boy, and he talked to his mama all day, every day. And so because they had that relationship, you know, I never had an issue with it, because I had made in my mind to have a relationship with her outside of him from before we even got engaged. And that was just something that I learned from hearing other women talk about the bad relationships they had with their moms, their mother-in-laws. And I didn't want that. And so seeing how close he was to her, it never affected me, because she always made me feel like a daughter, not a daughter-in-law. But what happened is that when the person that he talked to every day like that was no longer there, I automatically became that person. What I did not know at the time then was that he always wanted me to be that person, but because I was not making myself available in that way, he relied on his mom. Right. And that's something that I feel like women in general don't really understand, is that when you don't fully take your place as a wife, that the things that mom does for son gonna go back to mama and get it if he's not getting it at home. And so he, you know, we talked and stuff, but I'm not a big talker like that. Yeah. Like, always wanting to talk about my feelings and stuff. Like, I was a suppressor. So it's like I kept my feelings to myself, you know. So when he wanted to talk all the time, it's just like, okay, this is different. Plus, I didn't see that in my upbringing. So it's just like, okay. So he went to mom. And so when mom was no longer here, it was me. And so it's just like, oh, this is a lot. Like, that's how I felt in the beginning. This is a lot. Like, you talk a lot, and you talk a lot about your feelings. Like,
I'm in touch.
Isn't that what we want?
like,
You be telling me, you can't tell me what you thinking.
and it was a lot to get used to, because it wasn't just like the regular, oh, let's dream, or oh, let's just talk about this. This was like the grief talking. And so for me, when I also didn't feel like I could grieve, so I had no outlet. And so it was like, okay, I'm taking all of this in for him, being strong for him, and still having to be mom, because Skyland and AJ were 6 and 4 at the time. So it's like still taking on them. And then because of his position at the church, he still had to function and operate and do all the things. And so it's like, if there was something that wasn't going right at church, I was also the soundboard for that. So it was a lot. And I did not have an outlet because I didn't think I had one. Because again, me being a suppressor, I didn't reach out to my friends. I didn't talk to them and say, this is what's going on, because I thought, oh, you a bad wife if you feel this way. He just lost his mama. Like, you know? And so all of that I was just taking in to myself. And it was one day he came to me, and it had to have been the Lord that spoke to him, because the only person I was talking to was him. And one day he came to me and he said, Hannah, you know you can grieve too. I mean, just out of the blue.
Yeah.
And he was like, you know you can grieve too. She was your mom too. She loved you too. And it's like the dam broke.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, thank you. Like, he gave me permission to grieve. He gave me permission to express to him what it was I was feeling. And to your point, Eric, like, there is no manual for the spouse. And in the moment of grief, yeah, the focus is on the person who lost, but it's like, as a spouse, you lost somebody too. And as a spouse, you now have this responsibility to like support the one who's going through. But where's the support for the spouse? You know, like I really felt like during that time there was, and it feels like a selfish thought to be like, well, what about me? But yeah, what about me? Because I'm feeling too. Yeah. I'm going through too. And it's not to take away from what he was going through, but it's like we're both going through, and we both needed to learn how to support each other.
It was a thing. I remember as clear as day. We were driving in the car one day, and you mentioned, you were like, I don't want to bring it up because, you know, you're having a good day. You're not, you know, I didn't want to bring it up. And I'm like, and my selfish thought is, I'm always thinking about it. Like, you can't ever like remind me. You know what I mean? Like, that's not. It's always constant. It's just there. You know. And it was like, it's okay. Like, whenever you want to talk about it, and I enjoy talking about it because it allowed. I just believe, like, what was imparted into me from my parents, you know what I mean? I took it as, if I drop this ball, then all of that was just in vain, you know? So I want to whatever they poured into me, I want to be able to pour that out 10 times fold into whoever I talk to about them or about love or about, you know, just life in general, the things that I've learned. So that's why I turned my focus towards legacy, pretty much. Who can I impact the way that these individuals impacted me.
And it helped us, prepared us in a way when Papa Jenkins passed that following year. Like you said, George, like the muscle memory. I learned from how I grieved with Mama Jenkins how to grieve in a different way with Papa Jenkins, and being more vocal. And being prepared to be his soundboard, being prepared to be there, being prepared to handle all the things so I could take as much as I could off of his plate. And I was more vocal with my friends during that time, you know, just kind of expressing to them what it was I was feeling. Because like he said, the biggest difference for me between the two losses was that Mama Jenkins was kind of like expected because she was sick. So it's like we knew that, okay, that time was going to come eventually. But with Papa Jenkins, it was out of the blue. Like, we got a call, he's not responsive, and they rushed him to the hospital. And we immediately jumped in the car, and it was on our way down to Fort Lauderdale that I get a call from his aunt that he passed, and they're telling me not to tell him. I'm like, y'all don't know Karan, because that's what they call him. They're like, y'all don't know him. He knows I'm on the phone with you right now. He's going to ask me what you're saying. I'm not going to lie to him. You know, but they didn't want him to be thinking about it while he was driving, but there's no way. And so, like, literally, I told him, I said, Karan, pull over, because he was driving. And he was just like, what did they say, Hannah? What did they say? And I'm like, could you please pull over? Like, I just need you to pull over. And we pulled over to the side of the road, and that's when I told him, and he got out the car and just let out this scream that was like heart-shattering, you know. And it was in that moment that I knew, okay, Hannah, you're gonna have to be strong for him. You're gonna have to, like, help him, because now both his parents have transitioned, and it's literally just him and his brother. And I already knew that he is the stronger of the two, and that because he's going to be strong for everybody else, I had to be strong for him. And so in that moment, I was just like, God, you've already graced me for this, so help me take on that grace. And so, but I learned from Mama Jenkins how to do it differently with Papa Jenkins, to be there for him. and but also at the same time take care of myself so that I could, like they tell you on a plane, put your mask on first. So I knew that while I was going to have to be pouring into him, I definitely needed to be poured into. And so that's when I reached out to my friends more, where they were like, Hannah, can we help with like a food? And honestly, I didn't, to just correct myself, I didn't even have to reach out to my friends. It's like God had already sent them. Because it was like that day, we were checking on the house was being built, and you called me, Jackie, and you were like, where are you guys? And I said, we're at the house. And you're like, okay, we're coming by. And y'all came by with that basket. And for me, that meant so much because I am the strong friend.
Yeah.
And as a strong friend, you don't ask for help. And it's hard for you to receive help.
That part.
So to have y'all just show up, I knew that it was God. I knew that it was him saying, Hannah, I got you. I got you and Anthony. You just have to let go and let me.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was able to do the second time around with this loss. And that has just been something he's continuously been working on me with letting my guard down and letting people in, because again, as a strong friend, that's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
But strong friends need help too. Strong friends need to be checked on as well.
Yeah.
Can I just really quick, because this is why I believe this conversation is so important. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you, because our situation is still so fresh, right? And as I was sitting here listening to your story that I already know, right? It didn't dawn on me until right now that I haven't grieved.
Yeah.
Because I was her favorite son in love. I was her only, but I'm still. And as I'm sitting here listening to you, and as you say, you learned from Mama Jenkins to Papa Jenkins, and the muscle memory, and what you just shared that with me, and that's why this conversation is so important, because I'm sitting here, the strong friend. I'm the good Reverend Dr. Pastor.
Come on.
I'm the one that everybody comes to. And I've been struggling with, I can't grieve in front of her. She's had a time over the past 9 months. Sometimes I will be in my office downstairs and I'll hear her bellow out. And so for me, I can't break down. I have to be strong, but I have to grieve.
Yes.
She didn't make a red velvet cake for nobody like she made a red velvet cake
Come
for
on.
me.
Special.
I'm grieving that.
Yeah.
I'm grieving that. And so that was one part of it. The other part that I'm thankful for you sharing your story is I've been tippy-toeing around a subject around my mother, because I still have my mother. Her mother was fairly young when God called her home. My mother pushing 90. So in some conversations and even some moments of family gatherings where I want to be pulled, I'm like, I don't know, because I believe, because she made a comment one time, and I hope you don't share. I care that I share, but she said, my mom was in her 50s. Your mom is almost 90. Why was it my mom? Right? And so I've been tiptoeing around conversation when it pertains to my mother. And here's what I know. It doesn't bother her. It's a guilt that I'm carrying.
Survivor's guilt. That's the survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
That I'm carrying, because my mother's still here, 90 years old, almost 90, driving herself to the grocery store and living her best life. And my wife's mother has been called home. And so I'm thankful for you sharing that, because it helped me, number one, say, okay, after the podcast, you need to go somewhere and cry.
Yeah.
And you need to address those feelings. But at the same time, I can't carry that guilt.
There you go.
She's not even expecting me or asking me to. but I don't have to.
Yeah.
And so thank you all for sharing that. And that's why I believe this conversation of grief on both sides, because it is a two-side. When it's a marriage, you go in as one,
Together.
and it doesn't matter on what side the coin falls. You have to be that for each other. And this conversation is important.
Yeah.
And I think too, for him to say, I'm glad you did share that part, because like I held a little bit of, I don't want to say anger, but in a sense, like when he would be on the phone with his mom, like I don't know if you noticed this, but I would sometimes go to another room because I'm just like, that's something that I enjoyed, because I'm 1,100 miles away from my mom now. Granted, I was here maybe once every 6 weeks to visit her, but it was like when I would get home, it would be like, oh, now I gotta go back to the FaceTimes, and all of that, of not the actual being in her presence. Because I know the moment I walked out that door, she immediately got sad every time I had to fly back to Boston.
Yeah.
But just going back to like him having conversations with his mom, I would say, you are so blessed. Like, I'm jealous. I think I told him one time, I said, I'm jealous. You can literally still pick up the phone and talk to your mom. My mom was 57 when she died. And so it's like, what?
Yeah.
Your mama is almost 90, you know? And that's the thing, is like, I believe when I said that, it definitely wasn't in a malicious way, but it's just like,
It's real.
but why? Like, and so, and that's just and I'm thankful that there was a space that I can speak to him about how I truly felt. And that's another thing when you have a God ordained marriage.
That part.
Like literally, I know that I can be my vulnerable self with you, and I'm not coming from it's no ill intention coming from me. I'm just telling you how I feel. I'm expressing you how I feel, and I'm just thankful that, I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah, it's real.
I had to let that go.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
So there's so much. There's so much to hold. There's so much to hold in this space. Okay.
Before you even go in, we could be the interviewer and the interviewee. Because ain't no way we not going to share our story while they share their story. So we're going to go straight into briefly.
Okay, we'll share our story as well. And then I want to call up some of these things that I'm hearing. So our grief story, like we talked about earlier in this episode, in the prior episode, we were married young, and we got together when we were young. I was 16, he was 18. So our same friend group that were our best friends, our sisters and brothers, we were all together. So we already shared that we lost my best friend to breast cancer. And similar, we had talked about each type of grief, each instance and experience with grief is different. Kind of like when you have a baby. Just because you have 3 or 4 children, you still have to treat each one of them differently, right? And so that was my best friend, 13 years, still young, hard-hitting, trying to figure it out. And then he talked about my biological father passing away, which was in 2017. 17. And I wasn't as close with my biological father. I knew him. I visited him once a year. We didn't really talk on the phone that much. I loved him dearly, but we just didn't have that close bond. And so the grief looked different because it's like, I'm grieving this person that is no longer here, who is my father, who gave birth to me. And I'm also grieving the relationship that we never really had, what could have been. Do I even know all about me? Like, is there there's pieces of my life and my identity and who I am that I don't really know because this man is gone, and we didn't really have those deep conversations. But God blessed me in that 3 months before he passed, I wrote him a letter, told him how I felt. And I actually was like, I want you to go to heaven. Like, I don't know, I guess I invited him to Christ. He knew the Lord, but I just had to say my piece. And I didn't know that 3 months later, he just wasn't gonna wake up. But I believe everybody kind of has that peace in their mind, whatever they want to believe. I believe in my mind. I invited him to Christ in that letter. And I believe that when he closed his eyes, just like the man who was on the cross with Jesus, that he's with him. But that was my peace with that. But at that same time, we were building or remodeling our home. And so that was the most stressful period of our marriage at that time, and it was not going well. The remodel was not going well.
Yeah.
And
Everybody knows about construction and remodeling.
it was not going well.
Yeah.
And we were also going on mission trips with our church at the time, so we were like out of the country. Father passed away, and then this house was being remodeled at the same time, and trying to like manage all those things. So it was a lot. And then fast forward to 2020 when all hell broke loose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, back to 2019, we had our first child, Jackson, who we love. And we were not expecting to have Jackson, but we're so glad he's here.
Yeah.
I was like,
You just dropped in. There you go at the right time.
after 11 years being married, no baby,
No
here
baby.
he was. And so that was December 2019. I'm gonna quickly bring y'all through this timeline.
Yeah.
Every moment of every experience, every person that we lose is different. December, had a baby. February, we didn't know the world was about to shut down in March, but February of 2020, I lost my grandmother, who I was very close with.
Yeah.
This was my biological father's mother. I talked to her every week. Like, she lives in Arkansas, I lived in Florida, but we stayed connected all the time.
I was her favorite grandson.
Yes.
Literally.
He actually was. Because she ain't like the grand-in-laws. What do you call them? Grand-in-laws?
She didn't, but she
loved
loved me.
She did. She always did. And so she was the pillar of our family. Like, that was like, whoa, this family don't make sense without her being here. And so at that time, our son was 3 months.
Yeah.
And so, go from Florida to Arkansas is 14 hours away, but we going back and forth trying to figure this out. February, March, world shut down. 2020, pandemic. And it's like, what? Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to be a new mom. Just lost my grandmother. World is shutting down. And I am definitely going through postpartum depression.
Yeah, doing that.
Definitely having a hard time adjusting to motherhood. And we will talk about that on another episode. And so I say that empathetically because I know there are a lot of people who deal with, I don't like to say infertility journey, I like to say fertility journeys, but different fertility journeys. And I felt guilty even talking about the fact that I wasn't expecting to have a baby. And so I was also grieving what I thought our life would be. And, I need to be a mommy now. I wasn't expecting, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for my son. He is nothing that we expected and everything that we needed. And in that, my mind is, racing and trying to figure out how to put this all together, and then transitioning back to work. And then, when was it? In May.
May, yeah.
Again, I've lost my grandmother, very close. But then in May, my daddy, who raised me, he was my stepfather, but he raised me since I was 3. It was not planned, it was sudden. Yeah. It was probably 2:00 in the morning, got a call.
Your mom called me.
But she had tried to call me, but I didn't pick up the phone and I was asleep. Yeah. And so everybody know I don't pick up the phone. I'm sorry, y'all. But so my mom called him.
Yeah, and told me.
What'd she tell you?
She told me that Leroy passed away.
That's my dad's name, Leroy.
And I'm like, wait, what? It's 2:00 in the morning. So she woke up, because I woke up, gave her the phone. I went welling.
You see, let's look at the side. Look at the size of George. Okay, we in the bed, sleep. All you feel the bed shaking. He ran across the bed and into, you literally hear his feet stumping on the tile in the bathroom, and he plops down.
Yeah.
And
closed the door and just, I like.
And mind you, I haven't gotten the message
she
yet.
Didn't get the message.
Nobody
so
said anything to me yet. So I was like, what?
Yeah.
What's going
I'm
on?
in
What's
shock.
going on?
So,
And so I get the phone. I'm like, Mommy, what happened? And she just gave the phone to somebody else, her colleague, because we don't have any other family there. It's just my mom and my dad. She gave the phone to her colleague who was there with her. And he said, I'm sorry to tell you this, but Leroy is gone. And I'm a questioner. So I can't even process what you just said. What happened? What do you mean? What's going on? Have you checked this? Have you checked that? Because in my mind, and we'll talk about the stages of grief, I immediately went to denial. Mm-hmm. I'm immediately like, well, you clearly don't know what you're talking about. Because my daddy's not gone. Yeah. And I'm sorry, he's gone. And so I'm just trying to get answers. I'm trying to, I don't even remember if you came back in the room.
I did.
I don't even remember hanging up the phone with her. I just said, Mommy, I'm coming. That's all I remember. And then put down the phone. I know we probably can't demonstrate this here, but all I remember is like both of my feet in front of me and my hands in front of me. Now, mind you, how old was he? A little baby who's still not sleeping through the night, and we don't want to wake him up. I screamed, I screeched.
Yeah.
And it felt like the scream and the pain went from the tips of my fingers to my toes. And I was just like, I'm sorry if that sounds weird in the audio or the visual, but I felt the scream through my body, through the tips of my fingers and my toes. And the scream was because of what happened, and it's weird, but I remember just saying, I don't know what to do. Yeah. I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. I don't know what to do. Because Jackie always has to know what to do. Jackie always has to keep it together. Jackie always has to figure it out. At least I think, or that's the responsibility that I assume. But in that moment, I'm 14 hours away from my mommy who just became a widow. She's by herself. She went banging on every door, and her neighbors in the neighborhood, nobody would answer the door. She had nobody to help her. Until she finally called the ambulance. And they tried to revive him and they couldn't. It was so sudden. She woke up and he had just rolled out of bed. He was gone. There was no answers. And so then I had to grieve not just him dying, but grieve that I had no answers. Somebody give me an answer. Mm-hmm. And I do kind of feel like we've talked about this, but when you're in that moment of grief, you kind of almost go back to the childlike state of like, no. We call it selfish, but it's just human nature. Like, no, I need to know, I need answers. You almost want to fix it, but you can't. Mm-hmm. It has changed my life forever. And I haven't even gotten to, was it the next year? My grandfather passed away, and then my other grandmother passed away. Yeah. And then in the midst of all of that, his brother, my brother-in-law, was hit by a train. And it was like,
just back to back to back.
Lord.
It's just like, I was angry. I was just like, God, listen. I was cussing at him. I'm gonna be honest. Listen, I was like, Lord, you putting too much on our plate. Back to back to back to back. This is how I was real with him. I said, okay, if you my father, I'm gonna just express exactly how I feel, God, because this is how I'm feeling, and this is how we feeling, and I would never put even my enemies. I would never put just a state of grievance on them, because the overload of the spirit, man, just going a whole different area, and is battling with your soul and your emotions, that we have to keep it together. That's just what it is. But at the same time, like a little kid, you don't want to keep it together. You want to kick and
You
cry
want to be mad.
and just want to be mad and throw stuff and punch and stuff like that.
But our little 5-month-old, he has no idea what's going on and why the rest of the world was shut down. Everybody was in quarantine.
Yeah.
I was going back and forth to Arkansas because my daddy passed away in May, June.
Yeah.
Was the first Father's Day. Without him a month later, on Father's Day, my mom had a stroke.
Yeah.
And I think that's when I just completely, I don't know if I just snapped or like, but in a way that I was just like frozen. I was like, the capacity, you said the word, like I ain't got it. I think that's when I fell into a deeper depression, and my anxiety and panic attacks that I had never experienced before kind of like took over. That's the first time that I sought out therapy and encouraged those who need it and maybe haven't tried it before to go try it. But it all changed my life forever when my daddy died. That changed my life forever. 2020, May, I might get the date wrong, y'all. It was between May 23 and May 24.
About 26, about before Labor Day.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The Labor Day time period, because it was overnight, is a little different. But I had flown to Arkansas and trying to figure out planning my dad's funeral. So I had a moment where I turned on the TV and I didn't realize the world was rioting. I didn't realize that there were protests everywhere, because I'm like in this blurred state of reality. And I was like, what's happening? What's going on? And then I learned about George Floyd. Yeah, I'm a diversity, equity, inclusion professional. This is what I do full time. And so at work, I go back to work and everybody's like, George Floyd, asking for my perspective, my opinion, not just because of my role, but because I'm a Black woman. And I almost kind of have that guilt of like, bro, the only black life that I care about right now is my daddy, and he gone. Like, I can't even meet y'all. I can't even meet the world where you at right now with being mad. And I kind of felt like, oh my God, how can I be this Black woman, or how can I be the DEI person, or and it's not that I don't care, I just can't right now.
Capacity was full.
My capacity is full. And I'm bringing those things up too, because what I'm hearing too in the other stories that we just heard was there's this aspect of identity that grief challenges of who we are. And so we have to reconcile losing people or whatever the situation is, but who we were with those people or in that situation or with that job. And when you lose that, you have to step back and you're like, but who am I if I'm not, I'm always his daughter, but who am I if he's not here? And then supporting others supporting my mom, who's like, I've always been, his wife. Like, who am I? I'm not a widow, but technically she doesn't feel like challenging our identity when it comes to loss. Like, who are you if, you lose your job as the spouse being a provider, or who are you if you lose whatever it is. I think that's an important call up to hold in this space, is to recognize and be empathetic with both spouses. You're not just losing the person, the thing, the expectation. You're losing the identity that was tied to that. And that takes time. It takes time, and it takes time to process that as well. The other thing I had to call up was we talked about this in another episode. It was that assumption. We talked about assumptions being an assassin to the communication in your relationship. I heard a lot of themes in here about, well, I didn't think I could grieve because I was the supporting spouse. I didn't think I had the permission to do that. I didn't think I could be happy, really, with my mom, who's still here. I didn't think I could be happy, you know, around this person because I didn't want to, you know, rub it in their face or whatever that fear really is. And so I just want to share that with our audience, to be free of assumptions. And you don't have to badger the other person to be like asking them a whole bunch of questions, but take away the assumption in your mind that you think you already know what you can or cannot do. And maybe just ask, hey, would it be okay if I tell you how I'm feeling right now? Or maybe you write a note, or maybe you, you know, talk about positive memories together, like whatever that is, having that conversation and just being free of assumptions, because you never know what you might find. You never know what you might find.
One thing that you said, because that's something I questioned myself about, who am I? Like, I know I'm Priscilla's daughter. I know that. But it was so many things that happened from the time that she passed to like not even a month later, I became a grandmother. So it's like, I wanted to experience that life through her eyes as well, even down from when my daughter was giving birth. I thought about the phone FaceTime would have been up and she would have been in the room and we would have been my daughter's coach. You know, so it's like, who am I without Priscilla? I know I'm going to always be her daughter. But it's like, how can I give myself, because I'm also a pastor. And I'm like, I said, Lord, I am trying to lead people while being empty myself. And that's hard. And I still find myself getting into that space to where it's like, I don't have anything to give anybody. Like, I need to be poured into right now. And it's like, I can't give anything that I don't have. And so I do believe I put myself on him. I won't say put myself on him, but it was like I looked to him to help me navigate through this. And, well, you're going to have to do it today. I don't feel like doing announcements today, so you're going to have to do them. I'm just not feeling like doing it. It was just so much. And I'm like trying to lead in an empty place to where I'm like, I just don't have that capacity. That C word is so important. But being able to say, I do not have the capacity to be what you need me to be right now. I can give you this, but I can't give you this. But being in a place to fully communicate that to your partner and anybody in that case. And if that person doesn't accept that, then they're not the people that need to be in your life. If they can't say, I can't give this to you right now, and they have a problem with it, sorry. I don't know where we go from here, because
that's difficult too, I would say, because it's kind of the both end that we've been talking about. This tension of, because we could say, I don't have the capacity to do this right now. I could do this, but I can't do that. And the other person can still be processing and not understand, well, what do you mean you can't do this? Because they're still learning too. And so you had said it earlier, like the grace to grieve. And so it goes back to the vows. It's like, to death do us part, you know, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health. If that relationship is worth it to you, if you've committed to that relationship, there still has to be that grace era of, if they don't respond the way that you want them to respond, that doesn't mean they don't love you. Don't believe that lie. That doesn't mean that they don't care. Don't believe that lie. And I'm saying this from experience. Because I would have these lies circling in my head that if he didn't respond or be present or lean in exactly the right way that I wanted him to lean in, he doesn't care.